to order. Start with the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, do we have any additions to the agenda tonight?
I'm going to request that we do an update on COVID-19.
Perfect. We will add that to 6-4A. COVID-19 update. Any other additions? I'll look for a motion to approve the agenda with the one addition.
I'll make that motion.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion, a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries 5-0. I'll take us to public comments. If there's anyone who would like to address anything that's not on the agenda, please come forward. Seeing none, we'll close public comments, move to the consent agenda. Anything on the consent agenda that should be removed for further discussion? Hearing none, I'll look for a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
I'll make that motion.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
We have a motion, a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries 5-0. 6-1A, Maggie, 2020 summer hours.
Okay. At this time, it kind of depends on what happens, but just a little bit on summer hours. So historically, the city of Mare has allowed staff to go to summer hours. Staff is asking to consider summer hours for 2020. The proposed summer hours that we've done in the past include 7 a.m. to 4:30 Monday through Friday for City Hall. Monday through Thursday, I apologize. And then 7 to 11 on Friday. And then Public Works would be 6 to 3:30 Monday through Thursday, and then 6 to 10 on Friday. This did go to the Personnel Committee, and they recommended to Council approving the summer hours.
Haven't we in the past done something with a staggered schedule so that the city hall could stay open instead of closing down in the busiest time of the year on Fridays?
We have not done that.
No, I think that one year we did it, we shut it down at that time, and then they were always available for appointments if some appointments were made during the time, and they would come in and accommodate it. Anything else on that? If not, I'll look for a motion to approve summer hours for 2020.
I'll make that motion.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Then you'll just tie off, Maggie, with the taking a look at the collective bargaining agreement, just making sure everything's in line, we give the right notice, and find out from the collective bargaining agreement, please.
Yes.
Anything else? We have a motion, a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign.
Aye.
Motion carries 4-1. That will take us to 6-1B, Administrative Intern.
Okay, so Mayor and Council, recommendation tonight to consider an administrative internship for 2020. Staff has contacted 3 universities regarding a partnership for an administrative internship opportunity, but the city does not have to work with the universities exclusively. We could also post on the League of Minnesota Cities to attract students or anyone attracted to the field of public administration or has an interest in local government. Staff is recommending that this position be a part-time temporary position, working similar hours to current admin staff. Some of the projects that we have looked at this position focusing on is data retention. So anything we want to do with Laserfiche, staff is currently doing some Laserfiche, but we would like to expand on that. Focus on social media and communications management, kind of putting more of a plan together on how we will manage our social media, grant writing, and then other admin support. Staff did ask the Personnel Committee for additional input, and they did feel that this would be a worthwhile position. And while some internships are unpaid, a paid internship could further incentivize and bring interest to the position. So we're recommending $12 to $13 per hour. How we would pay for this, we did not budget for this position, but as I've explained, or we've kind of talked about with the financial, with Abdo, our financial advisor, we do have extra funds in our general fund that we will be looking at the next meeting transferring. So this would just be an addition, the 10,000 in here would be additional transfers that we would put in that resolution. So that would be, I don't foresee it being up to 10,000 for the entire position, but I think going up to 10,000 would be worthwhile. The position would be non-union eligible and would be for about 4 months. So with that, open for discussion.
Any other questions, clarifications on that? If not, I'll look for a motion to approve a administrative intern for 2020 part-time from $12 to $13 per hour.
I'll make that motion.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
A motion and a second. Any further discussion?
Yep. So the last time this was brought up, the attorney expressed concerns about confidentiality and a bunch of other things. At that time, it was decided no, and then we decided, well, we didn't really need that anyway. Is that the reason why we didn't budget for this, or?
When you say confidentiality, what do you mean?
That was one of his concerns that night.
What kind of confidentiality would that be?
That the files are confidential. They're city.
Oh, I don't know if he's. It would.
Understand really at the time either, but.
So if I'm thinking correctly, the files that we would be working with would be public files. So it would be like land use or land property files. So that's what they would be focusing on. If they were an employee of the city, they would be able to have access to certain records. But I don't know if his concern was like with the union. Would you know if it was union? Okay. I did have a conversation with him about this because I just wanted to make sure that it met the union. You know, we don't want to break any union contract stipulations, and so he felt that moving forward with this met everything that the union contract stated, so that it would be a non-union position and that it was underneath the temporary definition. And
then, so do you know why we didn't budget for it? Because I think we need it.
I just don't think this was something that we considered for this year. I think this is just something we decided to look into after the fact.
I assume this person will be a background check just like any other employee, correct?
Correct.
And how difficult do you think it will be to find an intern with kind of the way the schools are right now and they're doing online learning and a lot of the colleges are shut down and things like that? How hard do you think it'll be to find an intern?
I don't know. I mean, one thing is a lot of students are home right now because of things going on, so it might not be as difficult as we think it would be. But you never know. We can always just, again, it's kind of uncertain times. Just approving this tonight would allow us to go out for it, but there's a lot kind of up in the air right now, and so we kind of have to see what happens and see kind of where our direction goes, and then if we actually get any interest. So.
And I think we talked when we were talking about that software for the asset management. We thought maybe that would be also a good project for this intern, Maggie. So if you could add that to your list. Any other comments? We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
Aye.
Motion carries 4-1. 6-2A, Coldwater Crossing 8th Edition extension.
Mayor and council, in front of you tonight is, we need you to review and discuss allowing an extension for the Coldwater Crossing 8th Edition review for the final plat unit development plan and right-of-way vacation. So in July 2018, Coldwater Crossing LLC initiated the review process with the City of Mare for the Coldwater Crossing 8th Edition. Approval of the preliminary plat and preliminary planned unit development for Coldwater Crossing, they were approved but are set to expire on September 10th of 2019. So Jude Legoo with Coldwater Crossing is asking for a 1-year extension to allow for the maintenance and approval of those documents to be good through September 10th, 2020. Or he asked, yes, so they'd be good for until this September. And then with that, he would be giving the City of Mare the authority to extend our review deadline for the final plat and final plan unit development, and then the right-of-way vacation. So that would go to April 1st, 2021. And he is aware of additional items that he needs, that the city needs to be submitted so that we can finalize his application, but he has a letter addressed to the city asking for these extensions at this time.
Look for a motion to approve. Should we just do it in one, even though there's 2 extensions? Should I just
Yep, you can do it in one.
one motion? All right, I look for a motion to approve the preliminary plat and preliminary planned unit development for Coldwater Crossing 8th Edition, good through September 10th, 2020, along with the right-of-way vacation Park Point to April 1st, 2021.
Make that motion.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
Yeah, when he says that he is aware of how is he aware? Like,
So he knows what at this time there's reasons why he is not moving forward with the project at this time. He knows what he still needs to submit in order to get this project moving forward. He's just choosing not to do it at this time.
and how many of these can he get? 'Cause I thought he was on his last one. I'm not.
This is his second one that he's asked for this development.
How many?
I don't know how many he can ask for. I can look up that number, but this would be his second.
And I'm sorry, I have a question. This says that the approvals currently would expire on September 20th, 2019. That was last September.
And he got an extension.
Well, we're
Yep.
extending
So he's
it
just
now.
restating
We're
that?
extending it 1 year to September of this year.
But then why didn't we get the extension before September
Yeah.
2019?
I don't know if he asked for one or not.
How did this work? So
That was my understanding.
Yeah. I don't know when the extension went till.
yeah, I know the city's been asking for him to submit a request for an extension for quite some time. Because I think they're due to expire after 6 months. So it would expire, I believe John said it in March or April. But
What happens if they don't get an extension?
he would have to go through the process all over again and submit all the fees associated with that again.
And I'm not suggesting you don't approve it. I just,
I'll have
I
to-
would
I
just
can
clarify
clarify.
that the dates are correct,
Yeah,
I guess.
I can clarify. This
This
is,
is all I'm wondering about it. Just
yep, I can do that.
the way his letter states is that it's already expired and now he's asking you to extend it, and that doesn't sound like that's correct, but maybe I'm
Yeah.
missing something.
Nope, I agree. I can.
So based on the motion and the second that we've made, do we just leave those dates as is for now until you find out, Maggie, or should we?
Do we need to wait? We probably should figure out where we're at with it before we do anything.
Yeah, no, that's fine. We can wait till April.
Who seconded the motion? So if you want to withdraw your motion, and if the first person wants to withdraw theirs, then we can table it.
Right. I'll withdraw my second to that motion.
I'll withdraw the motion.
Okay, so we have the second and the motion withdrawn, and we will table this until Maggie get clarification on the dates.
I'm almost positive that we gave them there was already.
And it wasn't a year ago.
I do recall us doing something.
Yeah.
It wasn't, I feel like it was in the winter.
All right, Maggie, why don't you get some clarification on that?
Time.
We'll go to 2B, the 2040 comprehensive plan.
So, John Anderson wanted me to bring this to your attention. So, as you know, the Met Council requires cities in the 7-county metro to update their comprehensive plans every 10 years. We have been working on that for the last few years. And then on June 24th, 2019 is when we did our public hearing to submit it to the Met Council for official review and approval. Since then, we have received several comments from the Met Council. I know Dave has been involved in that, and there were some changes made and is seen in the current version. I did send that to you guys separately because it is a very large document for your review. It was then submitted to the Met Council on November 11th, 2019, and then those changes were submitted. And then on February 28th, we finally received our letter from the Met Council stating that our comprehensive plan meets all the Land Planning Act requirements. So with that, the city needs to adopt a resolution to place the City of Mayor comprehensive plan into effect. John said that this normally would go to Planning Commission for informational purposes, just to update them on it, but he felt that just with things going the way that they are, that he wanted to get this to you guys to pass so that it would become effective.
I'll look for a motion to approve Resolution 3.23.20.16, adopting the City of Mayor 2040 Comprehensive Plan.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries 5-0. 63A Fifth Street lot development, please.
I'll let you jump into that one, Dave.
Sure. So, Fifth Street, the east end of Fifth Street, if you can visualize it, is paved road, and then the paved road ends and turns into gravel, which right now is a service road that gets Mayor Lutheran High School to a shed that they have on the east end of their field. About 10 years ago, maybe more now, there were 2 vacant lots on the end of Fifth Street. At that time, the same person that owns the last lot on Fifth Street worked with the city to get water and sewer extended down to the end of the road and built I believe that's a 4-plex or whatever it is there, which is the last structure on the road right now. So cutting to the chase, there's water, sewer, everything is in place to serve this last lot that's on the end of Fifth Street. However, the road stops short of that. It stops at the west edge of that vacant lot. And so typically the city would require that if you're going to develop that lot, the road needs to be extended to provide the access, the service to it. So we met with the developer just to start talking through the logistics of that. One of the things that came up by John as we were looking at this is it appears that the right-of-way for Fifth Street only goes from the south edge of the right-of-way to the center of the road. It's a 30-foot right-of-way that only covers the south half of the road. It doesn't cover the north half of the road as it runs along Mayor Lutheran High School's property. We did just kind of a cursory review of the right-of-way, went back into the 80s, couldn't find anything where there's an easement or anything that we just, with our initial review, could find that there's any record that an easement or anything has ever been granted for that road. So, with that in mind, we met with, or we had a phone call with Joel Lansgreener from Mayor Lutheran last year just to kind of talk through that and ask if the city wanted to get that cleaned up. Does he see any issues with the school granting the easement to, one, get the right-of-way cleaned up along the existing part of Fifth Street, and then two, extending that to a point where if the person that was going to develop this lot extended the road, that we could have right-of-way for that work. He indicated that he didn't see that as any kind of an issue from the school standpoint. In fact, he thought that might fit well into some of the future plans that they have on their site there as well. So what we're looking for tonight is some direction from the council, at least from an initial standpoint, to get back to the person that wants to build on that lot as to what would need to happen for him to proceed. The thought from staff standpoint is that we would make him extend the paved surface of the road to the east edge of his lot. It's about 100 feet for that frontage. Our thought is really consistent with what is there now, that we'd allow that road to be extended without curb and gutter. It's not an urban section right now. We would let him extend the road with just a paved surface, 28 feet wide. That existing gravel road that's there, the assumption is that there's some gravel there that can be repurposed for a road base. He could extend the road to the east edge of his property, and since utilities are all in place, he could go ahead and do that. The assumption with that plan is that in order to obtain the easement or right-of-way, however we worked out with the school, that the city would authorize preparing the easement document to get that cleaned up with the school. We would do that work, and estimate it's probably about $500 to draft that document. So, bring it to you tonight just to make you aware that the person that owns that lot is interested in building and just needs some direction as to, at least initially, what the city's position would be as to what he would need to do with that road. If we got to the point where you agree with kind of the way we've laid it out for you, we would go back to the developer with that information. If for some reason they believe that that they shouldn't be responsible for the cost of extending that road, then we'd tell them they'd have to make a formal request as to what they're asking for and bring that back to you.
Do we know, is this going to be multifamily or just a single-family home they're planning on?
I believe they're looking at some sort of a multifamily. I think when we met, they were talking about a duplex there.
Thank you.
Any other questions for city engineer? So, Maggie, do we can make a motion then to start the work for getting the easement, but do we have to then do anything for the road extender, or just kind of an idea of what are you looking for from that aspect?
Yeah, I
formal motion for the road that.
Yeah, I think just that you authorize staff to communicate back to the developer that if they want to develop on that lot, they need to extend the road. I'd say per the direction of the city engineer. Our direction is as we described it here tonight, and then if I would put in, if they choose to move forward with this, that the city would obtain the easement. I don't know that there's any urgency to clean that up right now unless they were going to move forward with this. So I'd hold off on that until you know that they've made a formal submittal for a building permit and we work out the road piece with them.
I'll look for a motion to authorize city engineer to let the owner know they'll be responsible for extending the road per our discussion tonight.
Dave, is this property to the east, is this township or is that?
Nope, so that vacant property to the east is owned by the city. And, the thought would be is if we're going to clean up the right-of-way here, so we already own that property there. Again, it only goes to the center of what would be the projection of that road, that we would clean that up all the way around Mayor Lutheran's property, and then this would allow for potentially Fifth Street to go all the way through to that gravel road someday if and when that all comes into the city and gets expanded on. One thing more just from a history standpoint, that lot that the city owns there, it used to be owned by Bill Drew. And it had a history of flooding and some legal issues that were tied up with that based on the development of the city. And when we did the street reconstruction project back in 2007, part of that work was to acquire that property, and we built some ponding in there, and then also a storm sewer outlet from the would be the northeast corner of that property that we now own, that runs all the way up to 62nd Street to provide an outlet for that area, which ultimately solved the flooding issue. So that's just kind of the history of how we got that property.
So the intent is to get an easement from Lutheran High all the way up to 62nd?
Yes. No, all the way to the east to the township road, that gravel road. So basically, we'd be looking for 30 feet all the way along the south edge of Mayor Lutheran's property.
And is this something that John should be involved with, or the planning commission, or are we just,
So John has been involved. That's where kind of this initiated from, was kind of from a planning standpoint. As I understand from John, if the street extension is worked out and the developer's willing to do that, the utilities are already there. Really, all it should require is a building permit that it's zoned properly for the duplex, and the utilities are there as long as they extend the road to meet our standards. As we've laid out here tonight, all they need to do is apply for a building permit,
Right.
unless you, yeah.
I'll make that motion to accept to
Have the developer be responsible
for that.
for extending Fifth Street approximately 100 feet, 20 feet wide. There you go. Perfect. Okay, we have that motion. Do we have a second?
just that one?
Yeah, I'll do the
Okay.
easement on a second one.
Second?
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries 5-0. Now I'll look for a motion to have staff work with Mayor Lutheran High to secure the road easement on Fifth Street at the city's expense.
I'll make that motion.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
And just again to clarify, the reason this is for you is because of the request for that lot, but this also the intent of this is to clean up that right of way for our own purposes as well.
All right, any other discussion? All in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carries 5-0. All right, Maggie, for 6-4A COVID update, if you want to give us a little update on staff and how things are going and how since last Thursday.
Yeah, so I just wanted to provide an update. I did give you some handouts. One is related to the Family First Coronavirus Response Act by President Trump. That just provides an extension of benefits to staff if they do become infected by COVID-19
Or family.
or family. Yep. And then I also provided you with a shelter-in-place documentation, just kind of what it is. There's been other states around the country that are putting this into place. Our own governor did say that this could be a possibility. Essentially, it would require non-essential employees to stay home. So that is something that we are continuing to monitor, or staff will continue to monitor. And then also just some things from the League of Minnesota Cities, just kind of how it's impacting local government, kind kind of answering some questions about how to be supportive of employees. And so with that, I just wanted to let you know that staff has, I would say, has been very positive during this time. We have had a meeting today, just kind of discussing kind of what they need, what can I do? Can I research more questions for them? How can I be supportive? Right now, we're still kind of maintaining. City Hall is still open. We still are seeing some people come in, mostly just building permits and the mail. But I just, as we go forward, I just want council to be aware that there could be, some changes that we might have to consider, and that includes maybe staggering shifts, just to reduce the potential for exposure of staff, because we just don't want one person to become sick and then have to quarantine the other one. We're a very small operation, and so it's just we have to be a little more conscientious about staff working around each other. So one thing we talked about was staff rotating every other day. And then we do have access to our computers remotely, so we would be able to do some work from home, but just kind of limiting that exposure at this time. So just something that we've considered if things get worse.
Good conversations we have a plan in place. If we need to take action, we'll take action. But I assume the social distancing is working out. People are Public Works is.
Yep, Public Works is essentially just doing separate work, separate buildings, driving separate vehicles. So, yeah.
And then if Governor Walz does adopt in the shelter in place, I assume all city employees, county employees will all be considered essential, I'm assuming.
Yeah, I think for the city of Mayor, we would all be considered essential.
Okay.
Qu-
Continue to work through it.
Just a question. Parks. I've seen some cities closing parks and trails. I'm just curious if it is a shelter in place to, I don't want to get rid of, but I know other cities are posting that parks are still open, they're not sanitized, but make sure, you're still doing your social distancing. My coworker lives in the Bay Area, and they were still allowed to, drive to a place, and this weekend, everyone from San Francisco, the city, drove across the Golden Gate Bridge into Marin County to do all their open spaces, and were causing traffic jams, and people weren't allowed to be 6 feet apart, and depleting some of these small communities, so they actually had to close. If you cannot walk or bike to the location, you can't go. So that's some things that they didn't think about until it happened. I don't think I know that people are walking. I haven't been out enough to see if there's lots of kids playing at the parks. I don't think so.
A few.
Every once in a while, you'll see a family,
Yep.
but that's really pretty much.
Okay, I just wanted to throw it out there as a possibility that, would we have some snow fencing or something that can get put around if we're finding it to be an issue?
Yeah, I think it's definitely.
React fairly quick to that if need be.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that we need to close parks. I don't want that message to get out. I'm just listening.
I think it's
I think with all the parks and the trails and the public spaces that the state has, I'm hoping that if we do have to do a shelter in place, that the governor's going to be addressing that on how we need to be handling that, because we do have so much open spaces.
Yeah, and that's what California was like. Oh, we have all this open space, and then all the people in small confined areas went to the larger areas, which then depleted their supplies. So if they didn't pack a picnic lunch and went into that grocery store and took all those essential supplies, now that grocery store, everybody leaves, goes back into the city. Now and then if any of those people were sick, now they just brought it.
Or it's 100 people touching the same gas pump in a row.
Right.
Yeah, from what I was reading, I think it varies from state to state, so it really depends on how the governor words it. And I think, yeah, it's definitely, some have said 10 groups of less than 10, 6 feet apart. Yeah, so it really depends on how it's worded. So,
No, it's good to bring up and continue to monitor it and
yeah, we'll have to we'll continue to educate too online and just.
Yeah, but I mean, again, say like parks are still open,
Yeah.
trails are open,
Mm-hmm.
social distance. We don't sanitize the parks.
Right.
And you know what I've been seeing around town, at least on nice days like today, it's families that are walking.
Yeah. No, I don't
It's-
think
I don't see a lot of like inter-household kids playing together, and then when I do see like people outside talking, it's on the driveway and one on the street. So, I would hope to think that
Right.
citizens do a good
I'd
job.
like to just share what I've heard from people that are. She's been doing this now for a week. The shelter in place.
Yeah, it's all very new to everyone. So.
perfect. Anything more? Any other comments? Questions on it? Perfect. We'll just keep going and business as usual and make decisions as needed. Council reports. Eric, anything to report on?
Nothing, Your Honor.
Nice.
Not that I know of.
Liz?
No.
Nikki? Nope. I have nothing either. I've just had a personnel committee, but both those items have been brought before us today. So with that, I'll look for a motion to adjourn.
Make that motion.
Second.
We have a motion second. All in favor say aye.
I
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. We are adjourned.